Let us now continue with our class on the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. The study, contemplation, and meditation is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Yesterday we talked about towards friends, attachment rage like a river; towards enemies, hatred blaze like fire, and stupidity is just like darkness. When we look at our society, the grave rage, attachments, and stupidity that prevails the society can be very negative, can create negative consequences to our society, to the world, and to the different countries. And to ourselves personally, all of those three poisons are considered as the negative emotions. So they are indeed just poisons. When we look at the world, the history throughout the whole world, many things happened because of the attachments and hatred as well as ignorance. It is because of selfishness that would create those negative events. If we were to practice selflessness, if we were to practice what Buddha had taught, then the world would be at ease, would be at peace, and everyone would be comfortable and happy. And there would be very little to none harm that's created to the others. There are people that speaks of beautiful words such as human decency and great moral and so on and so forth. But if one were to have greed, anger, and ignorance, then all kinds of things that this person would carry out in their conduct would still be tinted by the poisons, and then the results of whatever they would do would not be as good as what they preach. Now we're talking about the livelihood or the way of living of a monastic. Likewise, over here it says that concerning the necessity of giving up friends, the way of the Bodhisattvas states beings who are themselves impermanent are greatly attached to that which is also passing. Isn't that strange? The beings who are themselves impermanent would hold on to whatever and whomever is impermanent as well. And then from the Jakarta stories comes the following: if you practice the Dharma, escape from your household business, how can one possibly practice the Dharma if inclined toward a household? As a practitioner, if you were to hold on to a household, to hold on to properties, if you were to hold on to a family life, then your practice would be very difficult to succeed. As a monastic, you need to give up the place or location or relatives and place to live and the lifestyle and so on and so forth. You should not have any of those grasping towards those. As a monastic, if you were to think of your relatives and your livelihood at all times, then you cannot be considered as a good monastic. To be a renunciate, to be a monastic, you must be like the deer and the birds, without considering anything whatsoever, country, friends, place, or livelihood as your own. Well, not all animals are like that. For example, we have lots of groundhogs that would hoard enough food for cold days and so on and so forth. And then it is stated in the Moon Lamp Sutra, those who regard nothing as their own and who have never had a master of any kind, who remain like a rhinoceros in this world, they're like the wind moving through the sky. A true renunciate should be like that. How about the modern renunciates? I think the modern renunciates, though parted from their home, but they would create another home elsewhere. They would have lots of things, accumulate lots of materialistic things, and grasp onto lots of things. That's probably the monastics of the Dark Age. If, after giving up one's homeland, one still remains among people and falls under the power of attachment and aversion, that contradicts the Dharma. If a renunciate were to be controlled by all kinds of greed, anger, and stupidity, then what's the difference of taking renunciate vows or not? As monastics, if you do not engage in study and contemplation and practice, if you do not join any of the Sangha that practices and studies and contemplates the Dharma, rather to use the properties of the Sangha. On top of that, not keeping good relationship with the others, not having good attitude towards the others, then after a long period of time, it could create negative karma that you cannot revert. And I've heard that some of our female practitioners have certain situations that's similar to the ones that's stated here. And I hope that whenever you have opportunity, you should then make confession. Also, if you do not have the matured causes and conditions to stay here, it might be good for you to leave here, because without the permissions from the Sangha, and you forcefully stay here to study and to engage in the practice and so on, you will lose faith to the Dharma. Nowadays, we have lots of people with some mental illness that seek refuge over here. But as a Sangha, even at the time of the Buddha, at the time of taking the monastic vow, the Buddha would ask, do you have a healthy do you have mental health? Do you have all the perfect organs? Those are parts of the conditions to get the monastic vows, to receive the monastic vows. If you were to be here and not living, despite not meeting those requirements, those could cause some negative deeds for you, negative karmic consequences for you. It might be good for you to practice at a place and in an environment where the causes and conditions are met. Lots of our management team can have compassion, of course, but it is not to say that you should have the stupid compassion that you allow people with mental disturbance to stay here. People with mental illness cannot be allowed to stay here because this is part of the rules and regulations of a Sangha. Someone I knew got derobed from Larungar, and then the other day we had tea together in Chengdu. He told me that he is less scared nowadays because when he was ordained, he didn't want to use the Sangha's property because he felt quite anxious whether he is worthy of it. But now he said that he is quite pure in terms of using money because he conducts a business himself. And then, according to Atisha, he said that demolish that demonic prison, your homeland, cut through the ties of worldly concerns, your beloved friend and hated enemy, evil actions, the land of attachment and aversion, escape from it all. It is quite essential for you to part ways from those kinds of places that would increase the negative karma. Rather, one should stay at a place where the positive or the virtuous karma would increase. The environments definitely have lots of differences. There are all kinds of different qualities to environments. According to the commentary, there are some quoted teachings. We can see that later. Over here is definitely a very good place for the beginners to stay to study. It is a good place for you to part ways from afflictions. He continued to say that keep far away from the place harmful for your mind, stay at a place where your virtue always increase. And then Zhongtunpa states the following: thoroughly cut off the samsara of cherished evil country and rely entirely on an abode free from attachment and aversion. For those of you who are staying here but only browsing computers, look at your cell phone every day, those are distractions. And if you were to have those kinds of distractions, it is not good for you. It is harmful to your eyes, to your physical health, and to your mental health. You have to control your own greed, aggression, and ignorance. My suggestion is that if you cannot control your three poisons, but rather stay in Larangar to conduct inappropriate actions, I think it might be better for you to part here for now, and then maybe after a few years, see if your mind stream would change. If you were to make progress, then you can come back, and that might be good for you. And then in Potawat's teaching, one finds statements such as, give up the country of your birth and distance yourself from loved ones, and move always like the sun and the moon, not keeping to one place or settling down in one land. Moreover, he said that although the three abandonments, forsaking your birthplace, severing connections with loved ones, and giving up unexamined objects, are the oral tradition of Redrun, in all future generations will have a hard time practicing these three. Karakpa explains that giving up the three things means that there is the giving up of the country one was born in, the giving up of one's home and household, and giving up of the works and pursuits. For the lay practitioners, it might be difficult, but for the monastics, those are the things that you need to give up. As monastics, homeland, house, and different kinds of trivial things. Giving up of the works and pursuits, those are quite important. Furthermore, Gyaltse Tongme himself said, after giving up attachment to your country, the source of faults, stay in a place where your virtue increases. Following the way of the Bodhisattva, he taught extensively on how, when practicing the path of a great vehicle, one needs to give up a place that creates attachments and aversion, and in his own practices, he acted accordingly.
Sonamdai tanche zebanya tonan bedana tanche jirga nanji ranlong chuba chubum sonen droa drura sho